welcome to another episode of Atomic Vinyl Reviews. My name is Jacob, and today we have yet another unboxing video for you guys. In this box, we should hopefully have the NECA 1964 Godzilla figure, which I'm super excited to see because their progress in this line of Godzilla figures has just been fantastic. They've really improved, and this one is looking like it may be one of the best. Still looks a little goofy from what I've seen in the photos, but, you know, let's take it out of the box, see what it looks like in person. So, this box that we got here is actually a packaging box for some Rick and Morty pop vinyl figures by the looks of it, which is really funny. But seems to work fine as a parcel box for this thing. And it's also nice that they actually packed it in a cardboard box and not just wrapped it in thin plastic like they did with my Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla, what's this called? Radiation Flame Spitfire version, whatever this version of it is called, with all the blue on them. So that one and a couple of other figures in the past, they have just kind of packed them really shittily, which is a shame. I think even this one's not too bad. The poster version of the King of the Monsters 56 figure also has some battering on it, but yeah, I appreciate that they did put it in a box, because these figures, the recent boxes that they've been doing for them are like half the selling point of these figures for me. I absolutely adore the new poster packaging that they've been doing. It is such an improvement over the old clamshell packaging that they used to do these things in, with that like Bandai Creations 54 Godzilla as a picture on the front. That was really bizarre to me why they did that, but whatevs. Okay, so we opened up our little box here. Inside we have some scrunched up magazines. I think this is a tax invoice, so I won't bore you with this. He was pretty pricey, I'm not gonna lie. These NECA figures in Australia, they are fucking expensive. I don't like it. You guys in the US, you don't know how lucky you have it. Whenever I accidentally go on eBay, for example, and I'm accidentally on eBay America, whatever the hell it's called, and everything's in American dollars, I look at everything in awe as to how bloody cheap everything looks. But then we switch over to eBay Australia, and then the prices just skyrockets, the shipping goes up, we have an extra international tax if I want to buy anything from you guys. It's a fucking nightmare, and NECA figures suffer from it greatly. So while you guys can pick up one of these figures from a local store for like 25 bucks or something, for me and a bunch of other Aussies here, it is a bit crazy. We have to pay like twice as much for that, especially if these things are new and recently released. But that said, let's get to this figure, because wow, I love this box. Look at this thing. Oh, it's gorgeous. This poster art is amazing. I don't know why the Godzilla picture on it happens to be the 62 Godzilla, but the Mothra on it and just the design and that whole vintage look is gorgeous beyond belief. Seriously though, why is this Godzilla here, the 62? Whatever. It's still beautiful. And if we circle around the box here, we got another nice image of that poster. Looks fucking gorgeous. I love it. And the actual figure on the back. Again, no, the sculpt doesn't look perfect in these photos, but it is so much nicer than the sculpts that NECA originally came out with for the Godzilla line. They started off with, you know, a couple of the Heisei figures. I think the Space Godzilla, not Space Godzilla, but the Heisei Godzilla suit that was in Space Godzilla, just the generic Heisei Godzilla, really. I'm not a big fan of that. From a distance, that figure looks pretty neat. But I actually owned a Burning Godzilla version of that one, where it had the orange patches, because I'm a big fan of Burning Godzilla, and I was not a fan of that figure. It was nice and chunky, but the detailing on it was so subpar. He looked goofy and weird when you really looked at him, and it was just kind of really off. Then we got that 84. Oh man, that fucking 84 figure. I do own it. I have it somewhere in my collection. I can't be bothered to go find it. It's probably in my storage section at the moment because I have a lot of figures, so I can't display them all at once. Or it'll be a bit of a mess in the tiny living space which I have. But I do have the 84, and it is a mess of a figure. Some of their other ones were very hit and miss, but you know, since the 54, they really started to up things a bit. The 54, I love that figure, but it still has issues, such as the tail is really short, the spines are a bit meh. And he doesn't look as accurate as he could, even though his sculpt is just really charismatic. He's got a lot of personality, that figure. But since they started releasing stuff like this guy, the 62 here, it's just upped my expectations of this line a whole lot. Maybe they swapped sculptors to somebody else with the 54 and the 62, and probably with this one from the earlier figures. So that's kind of my theory, and just get to this stuff. And of course the legendary Godzilla figures line has been really neat because they do use the actual CGI data from the film to actually recreate those figures, and that's why we have, you know, figures like this and that Rodan and Mothra, which are just stunning for, you know, the price which these should cost. Not the price they cost here in Australia, but for what people are getting them over in the US and stuff like that. These are great value. And of course there was that Shin Godzilla one, which I think it looks disgusting for a Shin Godzilla figure, and not in a good way, because I'm a huge Shin Godzilla fan, but their Shin Godzilla was really eh. But yeah, let's just get to this figure here. So these boxes, another thing which I bloody well love about them, sorry I have to like angle it oddly because of the glare, but they do open up and you guys get to see the figure first in beautiful glary HD video. So there he is, all packaged up in his little clamshell prison there, and we got a nice image of the figure on the side here in a little display, looking pretty great. And let's take a look at him with my own two eyes. He does look nice. Very standard classic 64 Godzilla. I actually really love the addition of the little Showa Mothra and her larvae at the bottom of the box here. That is just freaking gorgeous. And he comes with a beam. Yes, NECA, you're on the right track here. Your boxes, absolutely love them. The addition of a beam is just fantastic. Keep up the good work, and I'm really happy with your updated sculpt. It could be a little tiny bit better, but, you know, for a figure like this, and especially the 64, which is such a desired, you know, design of this kaiju, which, you know, we have some pretty good figures of, such as this bad boy right here, my 1964 X Plus figure, which I really love. One of my favorite figures of all time right here. And we do have the little tiny monster arts, which I wish they would just kind of remake in a bigger scale, but I love this figure too. So I'm actually really happy that NECA did put out this figure, and we're getting more Showa suits, because they're what the fan base really want, I think. So I'm just going to be very ever so careful and just slice through this bottom tape here. Not the animal, the tape that's right here is what I mean. But should probably use my little scalpel knife actually. Hold on, guys. Okay, got my little scalpel. Surgically remove this tape, or rather just cut through it and leave it as be. And then what we shall do is we shall part the cardboard to free our little friend in this from his little hidey hole in here. Come on. Okay. Put that down, and there we go. So, first thing we get, a little piece of paper and some very plasticky smell, but a little piece of paper that basically just says to heat up the tail in some hot water, and so you can attach a mundo it to that ball joint there, which you may or may not have to do. Sometimes these tails go on easy, sometimes they are a real pain, but you know, they're actually really easy to attach once you do the hot water. So before we look at our figure, I'm just going to quickly see what the backing page of this picture is... Oh, I love it. Look at this. Look at this, guys. In here, we have the Mothra's egg on the beach with those people crowded around. Oh, that's just a great piece of design work here. Whoever's doing the design work over at NECA, you guys, you're doing great. Keep up the good work. But on to our figure here. So he's nicely wrapped up, or rather packaged up. Sorry, I keep trying to get him centered. There we go. He's kind of in focus. You can already get a bit of a glimpse at him there. His eyes are looking really fierce. Nice bony teeth and beautiful charcoal gray sculpt with that beautiful scaling running down his body. So let's get him out of his little box here so we can finally be free. There we go. Little wire still stuck in his spines. And let's have a look at him. So first thing about a NECA figure in general that I love is their chunkiness, because they are made of solid plastic. They're not like all the little sleeve bits and ball joints like a Monster Arts figure, even though I absolutely adore Monster Arts figures and all their elements, but there is a charm to the chunkiness of a NECA figure. He's got his little mouth here, it opens. I like the glossiness of his eyes and his teeth. They do look really nice. The top jaw and all his face looks great, but his bottom jaw kind of looks a bit awkward. I know they got to kind of work around a lot of stuff to, you know, actually make it open, but like from the side it kind of looks a little bit goofy, a little muppety. I don't know how to describe it, but from the front his face looks beautiful. You can see those eyes nice and glossy there. I love the bony white color in those eyes. I love the gray highlights over his eyebrows. Those are done really well. The scaling's done beautifully, and the spines are nice and big and gorgeous, and just how they should be. Because some of those early NECA figures, I don't know why, but they really effed up the spines and just made them really thin and small and just kind of meh. They also improved the feet a little bit more from the other versions. So by the other version I mean this guy here, which is a 62, which I love this figure, but my only real issue with him is they made his ankles really thin. They look really jarring next to his thick bulky legs, and they just thin out here and it just looks unnatural. On the 64 here it is a little bit better. The actual sculpt of the feet I'm not 100% sold on. They look a little bit simple, a little bit too bird-like. They should have a little bit more webbing between them, and the toes should be a tiny bit more forward-facing. Like a really great example is the X Plus figure here. They just kind of look better. But still, it's a minor detail for a figure like this, and doesn't detract too much from it. Just looking at the articulation, so got a couple of ball joints in the neck, fairly standard articulation for a figure like this. The spines are actually pretty good at not bumping into each other, which is really good. We got ball jointed tail, and if we take out the rest of his tail, it should be ball jointed all the way down. So you got this nice chunky tail. Like, this is a thick tail. It's very similar to that 62 Godzilla tail, where it's all chunky and it's all beautifully ball jointed down to the last couple of centimeters here. So I really love the fact that they've converted these figures to ball jointed tails. Like, they are just improving this line tremendously. I'm commending you, NECA. Now let's see if brute force can get this tail on without heating it. It actually might work. Oops, hold on. And brute force triumphs! Yes! We got his tail on. We just look at that. Fabulous work, guys. I actually don't even recall if this Godzilla particularly had a very bulky tail quite like this. I mean, we got the X Plus here. We got this one. So this one might even have like a thicker, bulkier tail than he's meant to, but I'm not complaining about that. Let's see. A little comparison of the face sculpt. They're actually really similar between these two figures. I'll just kind of bring him in. The only thing that kind of looks a little bit weird on this guy, I will say, is the way they do the legs from the side. It kind of just looks a bit odd. Like, it always looks like you can't really bend his knees back and have his feet angled up this way a little bit flatter so that he kind of sits on his own center of gravity that well. His knees always jut out a little bit awkwardly from his body. It's a minor thing, but it's something that, for example, the Monster Arts, they have a little bit more columned legs, and ones that you can actually kind of have sitting a little bit back a bit and have his feet placed a little bit more flatter like that. Whereas this guy kind of looks more like a, whereas the NECA kind of has his feet both a little bit forward, so it looks like he has to rest on his tail to stand, and it kind of looks a little bit odd, whereas if you put him back a bit, he kind of sits a little bit more naturally, or at least if you have one leg a little bit more back and one a little bit more forward, it adds some dynamics to his pose. Whereas some of these NECA figures, I have noticed, they kind of have both their feet, both their legs kind of jutting a bit forward, and it's a little bit weird to get them sitting back very much. Here we kind of got it going, and it's alright. But this is just a little minor thing. I don't even know if I explained it clearly. But there you go. He has a nice sculpt. He has a nice tall figure, actually. So before we kind of compare him to other stuff, I'll just bring him in with this 30 centimeters X Plus figure, so you guys can really get a nice sense of comparison between a pretty accurate figure, just to kind of see what these two really look like. So he's about half the size of this X Plus figure in terms of just height, and the detailing of course is superior on the X Plus, but for a figure of this size it is done really nicely. Got some really good variation in the scaling, such as the smoother scales running down his belly and some more rougher ones around the edges here. Very nicely done. And we can actually bring in the 62 NECA figure, just so you guys have some idea of the sizing. If I do a full review of these guys, which I might, sorry I haven't been keeping up with my full reviews, by the way. It's just easier to knock out a bunch of an unboxing video for you guys and just kind of leave it at that, but I do actually want to get to those full reviews eventually. I'm just having trouble kind of figuring out how to do good size comparisons with my new setup here, but I'll figure it out, don't worry guys. So yeah, they size pretty good with each other. They're about the same height. I think this 64 might be a little taller, but he's slouching forward a tiny bit more with his neck. He's got a bit of a longer neck. But they do scale up nicely, which is great, because I really loved how big and bulky this 1962 felt. So to see them carry that over to this figure is wonderful. I love that attitude to making these figures just thicker, heavier, and bulkier, which is great for a Godzilla figure. Which brings us to the Monster Arts. He is a beautiful figure, but he is also pretty tiny. So that's always been one of the downsides of this one. It does mean he can kind of scale better with some of our Revoltech kaiju, which are a bit smaller, and we do have more of our Showa kaiju, like you can see back here in the Revoltech line. But you can see, compared to this NECA scaling, he is very small. He's just up to his shoulder in height. But it does give a good variation, and these figures are pretty similar in a lot of ways. Though you can obviously see that the Monster Arts is a lot more accurate, and even down to the paintwork. I like how he's got the stripe down the middle of his belly, which is something that I think this one is somewhat lacking. I think, if I remember correctly, that's an element of the Showa Godzillas that a little bit of a highlight down the middle would have added a bit. Now, does this one have hinged hands is another thing I was wondering. He does! Okay. They actually hid that hinge pretty well, which is good. So they keep retaining that element of these figures, which is one thing that the Monster Arts never do, but the NECA figures always do, which is kind of really awesome. There is actually some sort of distinction between the figures. His articulation is a bit limited in his arms, for example, and his legs too. But like I said, the tail being all ball jointed is really good. He can get some really good articulation, and the articulation's well hidden on this figure. Like, you can obviously tell, but it doesn't look jarring or anything like that. Yeah, just Really nice figure. Really nice. Who else can we compare him to? A nice comparison that a lot of people have been making is with the 64 third party slash bootleg King Ghidorah. Mine's in pieces, one of them, and the other one's still in a box. The reason one's in pieces is because I'm repainting it. The reason one's in a box is because I'm waiting to finish repainting the first one to then repaint the second one to then sell it off to a fan of the channel. But I've been really busy, so it's hard to get to that. So we're just going to use the 1992 special color version bootleg as a comparison because the body, the necks, and the tails, aside from just the wings, heads, and tail tips, which are from the 91, everything else is from that 64 King Ghidorah. So, this is how they scale. So this Godzilla is a bit big for this King Ghidorah. He should be a tiny bit smaller, but it can work. This King Ghidorah would still be much bigger than this Godzilla and look imposing, especially depending on how you pose them. They could really be paired together well. So I'm sorry I didn't use the actual figure, but like I said, most of this figure is the same sculpt as that 64 King Ghidorah, so you got to just kind of use your imagination for this. If I do a full review, I'll definitely bring in that one. So I think the scaling's a little bit off. He's a bit big, but you know, it's fine. Of course, we can bring in our NECA 2019 King of the Monsters figure, just to kind of give you guys a nice size comparison. And this one's actually bigger than this one by a little bit. Both are really chunky figures, but the Showa ones they're doing are nice and big, which, yeah, like I keep saying, is really good. And we can bring in a Monsterats 2019, just to kind of show that, yeah, this Monsterats is pretty similar to that NECA in terms of size. So they could still size up, but this NECA line has always been a tiny bit bigger than the Monsterats line for whatever reason. It's nice to differentiate between them, and you can still kind of pair them up if you really want to, which is a good little feature. I was gonna bring in my own custom Megalon figure. So this is a little statue that I sculpted. You can kind of see his toe here is broken. Actually, it's up there. I need to glue it back on. But this is a Megalon figure. Hopefully it'll go in focus. So I made this guy out of super sculpey clay. So I sculpted him myself, painted him myself, and he's always been a tiny bit out of scale with my figures. So this 64, even though it doesn't fit with the 74 design exactly, may hopefully pair up okay with him. This Megalon is a little bit small, actually, because I remember Megalon being fairly tall compared to Godzilla in that film. So, even though this guy is a little bit big for most of my figures, he's actually a little bit small for this guy. So hopefully Monsterats puts out a 74, and it might scale alright with this guy if they make him a little bit bigger. But yeah, that's just a little show-off of my only Megalon figure. I really wish I had more because I love this kaiju, and I wish they'd put out a bloody Monsterats, or, you know, NECA, get on it, make us a Megalon. Everyone in the fan base will fucking love you for making a Megalon figure. We have plenty of Godzilla figures, so getting to those... get to focus, camera. So getting to those other kaiju would be really cool. So yeah, that's my little unboxing review and just initial thoughts on this figure. I think it's not absolutely perfect. If I had to put out some nitpicks, I think the feet could be a little better. The color for the nails, for example, is straight gray, and the same with the spines. I would have loved them to be more of a bony color. Although they did really good with the bony color in the mouth and the paintwork in there and the eyes. That actually looks really good, and I love the gray over his eyebrows here. Some of the aspects, like the way the legs are sort of chopped up and made to articulate, look a little bit odd. From the side especially, he does look a little bit odd from certain angles. But overall, the sculpt is really nice, especially for NECA. This is one of their best, if not their best, sculpt. Excluding some of their Legendary Pictures Godzilla figures, because those ones are made from the CGI data from the film, so the sculpt, even though it's a little bit soft in areas, is always stunningly accurate. So great work for that, guys. But yeah, overall, I really like this figure. I love the new boxes and stuff they're doing, and even though I hate some of their old figures, I really want to get them with the original boxes, just for the boxes, because they look so good. They're really great display options. And yeah, overall, I highly recommend picking this one up, especially if you can get it for a good price. You guys in America, you just have a blast with these figures, because the prices there, when I look at the eBay listings, are so good. You guys don't know how good you have it. But us here, if you can find this thing for a decent price, generally NECA figures in Australia go for anywhere for like $45 at cheapest to like $60 or up to infinity, depending on how crazy the seller is. But if you can try and find it as close as you can to that $45 mark, then this thing will definitely be worth it and a great figure for your collection. So yeah, that is my little review and unboxing video of the NECA 1964 Godzilla figure. This is a figure I've been absolutely excited for a long time, and I am really, really happy to finally see it arrive and to see it in the plastic, or in the vinyl for for all you vinyl fans out there. I don't think this one's actually made of PVC or anything like that, or vinyl. I'm not sure what exact plastics this is made of. Doesn't matter. But with that, may all your vinyl be a radiated vinyl. Over and out!